There is a man you don't want to become. You already know who he is. He is not lazy. He goes to work. He pays his bills. He returns messages. But he has never, not once in his adult life, chosen to be genuinely uncomfortable. Not the discomfort that comes from circumstance. Anyone can survive that. The discomfort he has never chosen. The voluntary kind. The kind you walk toward on purpose. The kind that doesn't end in applause, or a paycheck, or a story you can tell at dinner. That man is, by every definition the ancients would recognize, already dying. He just hasn't noticed yet. And there is a very good chance, if you're watching this, that you are further down that road than you think.
Here is what comfort does to the human system, and I want you to listen carefully, because no one will phrase it this plainly. Comfort, as a sustained state, is neurologically indistinguishable from slow decay. Your brain, the same brain that once required you to hunt, to navigate, to endure, now receives constant small injections of stimulation with zero cost. Dopamine on demand, safety without effort, warmth without cold, food without hunger. And after a decade of this, the circuitry changes. Not metaphorically, literally. The neural pathways that once existed to tolerate pain, to delay gratification, to push through the wall, they thin. They go quiet. They begin to disappear from disuse. You don't feel it happening. That is the design of the trap. You feel fine. You feel, actually, reasonably content. And that contentment is the problem. Marcus Aurelius wrote, and I want you to sit with this: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. But you have spent years ensuring nothing stands in your way. You have removed every impediment, every inconvenience, every friction. And so there is nothing advancing you, nothing left that requires you to rise. The Stoics had a phrase, mollitia animi, softness of soul. Not physical weakness, something far worse, the condition of a man who has been so thoroughly protected from difficulty that he has lost the internal architecture required to face it.
And here is the modern version of that man. He cannot sit alone in a room with no screen for 20 minutes without anxiety. He cannot be told no without a cascade of internal resentment. He cannot begin a hard task and stay with it when it resists him. He cannot fast. He cannot be cold. He cannot be still. He is, structurally, a man built for a world that no longer exists, and unbuilt for the one that does. The Stoics diagnosed this problem 2,000 years ago, and their answer was not a philosophy. It was a practice, specific, physical, repeatable. It is called Voluntaria Inopia, voluntary deprivation. The deliberate withdrawal of comfort, not because you have to, but because you understand what happens to a man who never does. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius with the following instruction: set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself all the while, is this the condition that I feared? Read that again. He is not prescribing suffering for the sake of suffering. He is prescribing a specific cognitive procedure, the pre-mortem of your own comfort. You simulate the collapse of your easy life. You live, briefly, in its absence. And then you ask, was the fear of this worse than the reality of it? Almost always, the answer is yes. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus went further. He insisted that the training of the body and the training of the mind were inseparable. You cannot philosophize your way to mental toughness. You must earn it physically. cold, hunger, physical labor, carrying weight for no commercial reason. Nietzsche understood this from a different angle. He called it the will to hardship, the distinction between the man who is hard because life forced him there, and the man who is hard because he chose it. The first man is reactive. The second is sovereign. Man must be surpassed, Nietzsche wrote. Not man as a species, you, specifically. The version of you that exists right now, today, marinated in comfort and ease. That version must be surpassed by the one who chooses the harder path when the easier one is also available. That is the only definition of discipline that has any weight. Anyone can do the hard thing when there is no choice. The man who does the hard thing when he could have done nothing, that man is building something different inside himself. He is rebuilding the architecture that comfort dissolved.
So here is what this looks like in the concrete in 2024 for a man who is paying attention. Not a program, not a routine you optimize and then abandon when the app stops sending notifications. A permanent, ongoing orientation toward voluntary friction. Step 1. Perform a pre-mortem on your own softness. Sit down with a piece of paper. Write down the 5 comforts you could not live without. Not the ones you'd be inconvenienced by losing. The ones whose loss would genuinely destabilize you. The phone, the temperature control, the food on demand, the social validation, the schedule that never challenges you. Those are not amenities. Those are dependencies. And dependencies are leverage points that life will eventually use against you. The question is not whether they will be removed. The question is whether their removal finds you prepared or broken. Step 2. Begin 1 voluntary deprivation per week. Not permanent, not performative.
1 day without the phone after 7 p.m. 1 meal skipped without complaint or announcement. 1 morning that begins before dawn with no reason other than the practice of beginning before dawn. 1 conversation where you are asked for your opinion and you say nothing, because restraint is also a muscle. Step 3. Stop telling people about it. The moment you announce your discipline, you extract a social reward that replaces the internal one you were supposed to build. The Stoics called this the corruption of the practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote his entire philosophy in a private journal, not for publication, not for an audience. The practice was for him. The record was for him. The discipline was not a performance. Step 4. Conduct your own pre-mortem on your life. Now, not when you're old. Now. Imagine the man you will be in 10 years if you change nothing, if the comfort continues, if the friction is always avoided, if the hard thing is always deferred.
Look at that man clearly. Do not flinch. Now ask yourself the question Seneca asked. Is this the condition I feared? The fear of becoming that man, is it sharp enough to move you? Or has comfort softened even the fear? There is a version of this video where I tell you that you can do it, that the journey starts to dull, that small steps lead to large change. I'm not going to tell you that, because the evidence suggests that most of the men watching this will change nothing. Not because they lack the information. You have the information. You've always had the information. The Stoics wrote it down. Nietzsche wrote it down. Your body knows it. Every uncomfortable moment you've ever avoided and then regretted knew it. The problem has never been information. The problem is that comfort is more immediately rewarding than the slow, invisible, unrewarded work of rebuilding yourself. And comfort has an entire civilization designed around it.
Every screen, every delivery service, every algorithm, every social norm pointed in the exact opposite direction of where you need to go.
So this is not a motivational video. I am not asking you to feel inspired. I am asking you to be honest about what you are. Because if you look at the actual texture of your daily life, the choices you make when no one is watching, when the hard option and the easy option are both available, if you look at that honestly and you are satisfied, then this video was not for you. But if you look at that honestly and something in your chest contracts, that contraction is important. Don't replace it with a subscription or a supplement or a 30-day challenge. Sit with it. That discomfort is the beginning of the only thing that matters. Seneca, 2,000 years ago, writing to a man he would never meet, put it this way: Nusquam est, qui ubique est. He who is everywhere is nowhere. The man who chooses every comfort belongs to none of them. He is scattered, diffuse, present nowhere, strong in nothing. Choose your deprivation before deprivation chooses you.